Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever and however you are watching the Valley Life podcast. My name is Vinnie Hankey, lead pastor at Valley Life Community Church. Joining me in our home studio today is Mr. Brandon Lockridge. Hey, buddy.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
It's good to be back.
It
Good
is.
to be back home.
It is.
You know, that other place was fantastic. I'm really glad. Again, shout out to the Unbound building there, downtown Meridian. That was a fun time, but there's something about just being home, right?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, unlike the Angels, we have a good road game strategy. We can go win on the road. I think we demonstrated that we can.
He's throwing blow. Look at that. Already, right off the bat, he's just...
And just like the
blows.
Dodgers, we're going to kill it while we're at home. So it is good to be back.
Oh, boy.
Back to the podcast that takes theology from the classroom to the living room, storeroom, stockroom, showroom, workroom, weight room, and water closet. And we do that because we want to get good theology out to the people because we firmly believe that bad theology hurts people. Mm-hmm. And speaking of good theology and getting it to the people, on this special episode of the Valley Life podcast, we're going to be doing a fall preview of the adult education classes that we're offering this September.
Right.
So you've been newly anointed? That's too strong?
Whatever you want to say. I don't really, it doesn't matter.
Newly hired as our student and adult discipleship director.
Right.
And for those of you keeping track at home, Brandon's our new S.A.D.
The acronym.
S.A.D.
S.A.D. Yeah. Thank you. You worked hard to come up with that.
I did. It took me a long time to figure out how to arrange the letters.
Yeah, I know.
But certainly we're not sad to have you on the team. Certainly not sad to have you overseeing ministry. But yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited for this.
It's going to be good.
Yeah.
So if you are new to Valley Life, or maybe you don't attend church here and you only know us through our podcast and our web presence, like Spider-Man, we offer adult education classes before our regular Sunday morning service, and we've done this for a few years now. Brandon helped kind of kickstart that practice, and one of our other elders, who you may know, Dan Shook, leads a Bible study once a year in that same time period. And so as we get rolling into the fall, we thought as a way to advertise, get the word out, we talk a little bit about what the classes are. So let's just start. How many classes will we be offering this fall?
Yeah, we're going to be doing 2 classes this fall. They'll be running simultaneously Sunday morning, starting at 9 a.m. And I'm really excited about this. This is, as you mentioned, I think it was 2001 when I first started a fall class. We went through the Belgic Confession, took 3 fall semesters to get through all the way through the Belgic Confession. And that was something that was really neat to do. I think, as you mentioned, we had Dan Shook, who was already doing Bible studies around the same time. And I had a passion for theology and going through a solid systematic theology, and what better than one of the documents contained within the 3 forms of unity, which we use as sort of a statement of faith here for the Reformed churches. And so I thought that would be a lot of fun to do, to walk through that, and it was a lot. It was really awesome. Pastor Kevin Bailey, when he came on board a year ago, took that idea and then just amplified it. We had a few different classes going. We had stuff going on Sunday morning. We had some stuff going on during the week. That proved to be a bit challenging, and so we're going to try to consolidate those classes into just a Sunday morning Bible study, or adult Sunday school classes. And the idea is that every semester we will have at least 2 classes going at the same time. One will be focused on more of like a actual Bible study, whether it be a book of the Bible or some sort of New Testament or Old Testament overview, something of that sort. And then the other one will be more theologically focused, whether it be a systematic theology, biblical theology, apologetics, something of that, or even church history, something of that sort. So that's kind of the idea for this coming semester.
I think that's a great rhythm and a great pairing So for folks who really want to study the Bible for the Word itself and get more familiar with the 66 books, we'll have opportunity to dig into those. And then for those who maybe want to alternate and study Christian doctrine and Christian application of what the Bible teaches, there's that secondary class. And then the great thing is you can always alternate. So maybe do a fall Bible study and then a spring doctrine class, and then back and forth.
But people won't be missing out, even if they choose one class over the other, because we will be recording these classes this coming, just for moving forward. We're going to be recording both classes. At minimum, we're going to be starting with the audio recordings of both classes. If we can somehow work some video in there at some point, that would be awesome. But at this point, at minimum, we're going to have the audio, and that's going to be in the church app on the church website. So if people want to come to one and they're bumming because they're going to miss the other one, not to fret. We will have that audio up, as well as any notes, that class notes that the instructors provide, if there be slides, presentation slides or anything like that, we'll try to get those on there as well.
So if you're a listener or a watcher and you're not physically located in the Treasure Valley here in Idaho, you can still access that good theology that we want to help create and equip our people with. So let's get into the nitty-gritty details. What are the titles of the two classes? And then can you give me a synopsis of each?
Yeah. So first class I'll mention is going to be led by one of our elders here, Jim Evenhouse. And this class is starting on September 15th. And the title of this class is A Ready Defense, with the subtitle, An Introduction to Apologetics. And the synopsis that Mr. Evenhouse has given me here, I'm going to read this for you. It says, this class is intended to be a starting point for those interested in knowing more about how to defend their faith against attacks, as well as knowing more about the evidences that support the Christian faith. And I think to go even deeper, and you might know a little bit more about this class that Jim does, because I think Jim Evenhouse is a teacher over at Nampa Christian, and this is one of the classes that he does there. So he's sort of tailor making this class. He's taking what he does in his one of his semester classes there at Nampa Christian, and he's tailor making this for a 12-week class here at Valley Life. And so I think you're a little bit more familiar. I think there's some sort of worldview apologetics in here as well, if I'm correct.
Yeah, Jim is an excellent teacher, and he's been teaching at Nampa Christian for over 25 years. Yeah. And so he's really been able to hone this approach to apologetics. And so he'll establish kind of what are some of the worldview questions we can ask to use in critiquing any truth propositional statement. So the Christian faith, makes some truth claims. And so how do we evaluate the claims that we make in terms of how we understand the world and its existence? How do we understand our identity and our purpose? And so what he'll do is provide a framework in order to evaluate attacks on the Christian faith, and then how to apply those same questions to alternate worldviews.
Right.
So if you're coming from, an atheistic worldview, well, how do we explain, purpose and meaning and creation,
right.
and what are some of the questions we can ask of that worldview, even as they perhaps might attack our worldview?
Right. And so for those of you who may be a little more learned in the area of apologetics, we did a class previously on apologetics, and it was a sort of what they call presuppositional apologetics. And would I be correct to say that Jim's is maybe a little bit more of a classical view of apologetics?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good summary of it.
Okay. Yeah. So really excited for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that one. And then, secondly, we have starting on September 22nd, so a week later, we're having a class led by another one of our elders, Brandon Torres, and the title of that class is Jesus on Every Page. And so this is going to be a bit more of a Old Testament overview and looking at the Old Testament through the lens of Christ and finding Christ on every page as we make our way through the Old Testament. So I have a little synopsis here for the class that has been given to me by Brandon, and I'll read it for you here. It says, the majority of Christians today, sadly, are extremely unfamiliar with the Old Testament. Mostly it is avoided because it seems difficult, boring, or weird, and to some extent, a completely different story from the New Testament. We will spend 12 weeks walking through the Old Testament writings with one simple thing in mind that will help make sense of these difficult passages and draw us into the story. That is, that all of these passages point us to Jesus. Join us as we learn together to read our Bibles differently so that we see Jesus on every page. And this one is going to be really exciting too. You know, sometimes we can read through the Old Testament and we feel like it's a slog and it's, you know, how does this, where's the application here and things like, I know, especially for me, as a younger Christian, whenever I go through that, read through the Bible in a year or something, like it felt like I was just kind of, slogging through the Old Testament.
Yeah.
What does all this mean anyway? I mean, I'm a story guy, so I really do enjoy the stories of the Old Testament. But what does all of this point to anyway? And the truth is that Jesus is on every page of the Bible, not just the New Testament, but the Old Testament as well. We can look to a lot of things in the Old Testament and we can see how they point to Christ, right? So when a lot of times, in theological terms, when we're talking about Old Testament, New Testament, we'll talk about the Old Testament in terms of shadow, right? Or typology. All right. So we see things in the Old Testament and they are a type of something that we see in the New Testament, or they are a shadow of something that we see in the New Testament, a shadow of Christ, right? And so we a lot of times talk about Old Testament, New Testament in terms of shadow and substance, right? Yep. Shadow is sort of the Old Testament, substance in the New Testament, and so that's going to be really fun, I think, to go through. And when he talks about join us as we learn together to read our Bibles differently, that's the idea of putting on a different lens, right? We think of you're looking through something through a particular lens. Now let me take that lens off and let me put on a new lens. And what is that lens? How is this talking about Jesus, right? And so as we go through the Old Testament, we put on that lens of that Jesus lens. How is this pointing to Christ? Yeah. And so that'll be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to that as well. Yeah,
I think the thing I'm excited about Brandon's class is that it actually helps us understand and read the Old Testament the way Jesus himself did.
Right.
Especially if you look at Luke 24 and the road to Emmaus when he's walking with his disciples after the resurrection, and it says that he opened up the scriptures and opened their minds to the things that he had already taught them, but now made known once again.
Right.
And so Brandon will help us look at the Old Testament in a way that Jesus understood it. And then also, I think, in a way that perhaps might be new for many readers of the Old Testament, because for so long, primarily, we've read the Old Testament in terms of what morals can it teach us, or what lessons can it teach us not to do. And yet that's not the main thrust of the text. It's not a moralistic lesson so that, we can be David and have courage to face giants, or, we can be Moses and fulfill God's calling despite our weakness. Those are lessons, but they're not the primary lesson of the Old Testament. So it's going to be a good class.
Yeah, indeed.
Any final information, thoughts, considerations you want listeners and watchers to know as they prepare for this fall launch of these classes?
I would just say, come ready to learn. I know this is going to be, a tough decision to make, between these two, but, again, we're going to have all that, those audio recordings up on both classes. Brandon's class, the way Brandon teaches, he's very interactive, not just in the middle of the class, but throughout the week. So Brandon loves doing band pages. So in fact, Brandon has already created a band page, a band group for his class. And so everyone who joins his class, he will give you access to that band group, and there's going to be conversation and stuff going on throughout the week. So that'll be really exciting. Jim Evenhouse is just a fantastic orator. I mean, he's just the way that he delivers a message and a teaching. I mean, like you say, he's been doing it for 25 plus years, right? So he's just fantastic. I love listening to Jim. Both of these guys are just fantastic. It will be hard to pick, but I would say, yeah, don't worry. We're gonna have it all recorded. Just come ready and stay tuned for the spring as well, because once fall is over, we're going to be getting into our spring classes as well, and got some things kind of in the pipeline for that, so that should be exciting.
Yeah. So if you're looking for content, you can visit vlccIdaho.org, or you can download our church app by searching out Valley Life Community Church, wherever you get your apps on your smartphones. For the saddest man on the team, Mr. Brandon Lockridge, I'm Pastor Vinnie. Thank you for listening and watching. And as always, God bless you.